Hello, everyone. Hello, Eva. It's again an honor for me to join that question and answer Q&A session. And yeah, I'm very, very happy to join that event with you and with our viewers, and just to be able to answer a few very important, very interesting questions what we have. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure. And so we want to thank you, first of all of you for submitting your questions. We've got quite a few. We will not be able to get through all of them. We selected 4, potentially 5 questions we will answer today, both from our English speaking and Polish speaking audience. Of course, the Polish questions will be translated, and then we will follow up with the rest on another occasion. So should we get started?
Sure.
All right. Good. I can read out the first question. That one was sent to you by Violetta. It's from our Polish viewer, and just translating what she's asking is, she says, you know, in this process of getting into going through and exiting narcissistic relationship, what happens inside of us, the empathic partners of narcissists, the sensitive partners? Do we have inside of us some kind of a mechanism of rejection? Maybe we also project it on the relationship, on the process, since we get addicted to the intense emotions that arise in the relationship. So in other words, like, are we participating, I think what she's asking, in this process by somehow projecting our own fears of rejection? Do you wanna tackle this one, get started on this, or do you want me to do it?
Let's say I will say my point of view into this, and then maybe you will continue and probably give us a bigger picture of this. Yes, definitely. Now, what I see, we are participating in that process. We are part of the process and in the pattern of the relationship. But I don't think our goal is to be rejected or reject. I think more likely that process is on the other side. And I'm not trying to say or blame the other side, the narcissists, but what I can see, our goal is to continue and grow within the relationship. And because we are all codependent, both sides, narcissists and empaths, we are part of the process, obviously, but definitely not part of rejection. That wasn't never my goal, and I didn't see anyone on that side who wants to be rejected or wants to reject. We want to continue, we want to fix, we want to be there as much as we can, as strong as we can. But sometimes, in most cases, if not all, it is impossible. So yeah, definitely your answer be bigger on that one, as I know your approach to this, and that's very, very common question in narcissistic industry.
Right, it's the question, as I understand it, like, to what degree do we participate in this dance of codependency? And I just want to, and rejection, which usually is big element of these relationships. And I just want to mention real quick, talk about the codependency and how that arises, because not every single person who gets into a relationship with a narcissist is codependent when they get in, but they become codependent as default because there's just no other way to relate with a narcissist. It's almost as if this mechanism becomes very activated, whereas before maybe it wasn't activated, if that makes sense. So like you said very accurately, what you end up with is 2 codependent people who are sort of existing on 2 polar opposites of each other. And that polarity, of course, creates that attraction or that feeling of, like, you know, 2 puzzle pieces fitting together, and so on. So one side seeks more of an acceptance. I think both do, but in the way that they present themselves behaviorally is that the person who's more empathic, more sensitive, seeks that acceptance, seeks that connection, whereas the narcissist rejects that because they can't get intimate with anyone, because intimacy would require showing all of themselves, right? Showing, okay, there's my good side, and then there's my bad side, right? We all have the bright side and the dark side, you know, we all have flaws. And intimacy and love that can be sustainable, it requires that progressive, gradual showing of yourself to another person so that you can feel accepted and loved, and then you can relax that part of yourself, and then you maybe go a little bit deeper, and then you relax that part, and this builds trust, this builds intimacy. That's what happens in a healthy relationship. Now, by healthy relationship, I don't mean that both people are perfect and they've worked everything out and now they come together and this amazing thing happens. No, we all come into relationship with all sorts of issues, and we can actually resolve some of these issues while in the relationship too. But that requires a certain degree of maturity from both sides, honesty, right? So that the trust can be established. So I agree with you here that it does not, we don't seek rejection. It's not like, you know, there's some unconscious mechanism that is there to begin with. That's sort of, to me, is sort of going into a little bit into that spiritual realm, maybe, where a lot of people are looking into, like, maybe there's some layers, like I wanted somebody to reject me so I can learn a lesson. And I mean, we can probably dig in there and find something, because it's an ambiguous space and you can always find some form of a confirmation to almost any question, you know, when you go deep enough into that spiritual ambiguous space. But I think, like, staying sort of in the concrete reality, that's not something that drives people. When we go into relationships, it's to be loved, is to feel connection, is to generate trust, and it's to grow. And as we both know, and probably many people watching, that is not something that's possible with the narcissist, because you can only get so far. When you hit that wall, you hit that fear, that insecurity of the narcissist, and almost that disgust, because they're disgusted by this closeness. To them, it's kind of gross, like, ugh, you know, and then you get that rejection. So without getting, because this could be a topic probably to unpack for hours, but without getting too deep into it, just keeping it on this level, I would say that's how I see it, and I think we're in agreement here.
Beautiful. Like the way you describe that closeness, that intimacy, it is actually something what really resonates with me, because every time when I try get into that stage and go past this process, as you said, like, you know, you are going and then there is a wall and you cannot go any further. It is kind of, you know, opposite polarity of the magnet, and it's pushing you out constantly, while I think natural, at least mine, and as I can see yours, desire is to go deeper and deeper and grow this feeling. This is fantastic. This is beautiful feeling, but it is impossible with the narcissist. It is impossible. So that rejection, yeah, fully agree with that, and I like the way you answer that. Go to next question.
Yeah, let's go to the next question. This one comes from Eco Designer, and it's also in Polish, so I'm going to translate it. This person asks, I'm wondering why we empathic people, rescuers, don't connect with other empaths, rescuers. It would be a beautiful relationship with a huge exchange of positive energy and building very deep bond. So do you want me to get maybe started on this one and then you jump in?
Sure. You go ahead. Like, yeah.
I get started, so we can kind of go one and then the other. So yes, just briefly, this may seem like it would be a beautiful, harmonious relationship in theory, but in reality, all people who have this deep drive to rescue someone, there is a strong element of codependency, in my view. You know, it's like you're sort of jumping straight into a role to help another person, which means that that person is in some ways not quite on your level, we could almost say, and it requires the rescuing. So you now become a teacher, a hierarchy forms. We're no longer looking at a relationship that's based on equal partnership, but rather somebody needs help. And then if you have two people doing that at the same time, it could become quite the seesaw, going, you know, back and forth and looking for problems and looking to save another person and bring them to your side to see the world from your point of view. So that's sort of taking this question and creating this model that's quite extreme. I do want to also emphasize that all relationships, including the healthy ones, will have an element of one person helping another person. So maybe I don't know if that person meant that. If we're talking about sort of like a chronic desire, a drive to rescue, I don't think that's healthy. But if we're talking about, well, I just want to help my partner when that my partner is suffering, and then when I'm having a hard time, my partner will come and help me, that's very healthy, that's very normal. Because life, as we know, throws at us all sorts of challenges, and it's so nice to have a partner who will stand by you during that time and help you. And so that's sort of where I would start with this answer. What do you think?
And yeah, again, like, you know, very, very fulfilling answer to that question, that I fully agree with you. What I can also would like to add into this, it is like by nature, a rescuer will have not much desire, not much attraction into the other rescuer, because there is not much to fix within that person. That's the one thing. So as you said, we will be looking for something maybe not real or not relevant, not important to fix. And then again, the feeling of that, it could be something like, okay, I don't have that much excitement within this. My role is not as fulfilling in that relationship, so I maybe pass on this one. And there is no sparks, no bells and whistles like with the person who that kind of rescuer type will see in the person who will require, in the rescuer view, attention, which doesn't mean it will require attention from the other side. Also, what I like to add, maybe as a opposite side of this, imagine two malignant narcissists together. It'd be an absolutely what I would describe disaster, but disaster within a big, massive party with fireworks, with massive noise and a lot of noises, and the police around trying to stop that party and other people, and so on and so on. So that'd be kind of opposite to this. And that's also what I can see. And again, it'd be absolutely beautiful, gorgeous setup if we have those two types together. I mean, empaths, rescuer, but the real life is saying a little bit different. We are only human, and that's what is often happening.
Yeah, what I would also like to add is that what I think is important is to strive towards wanting to become an individualized person. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Actually, there's another question that asks about this specifically. But to become individualized and to be able to stand on your 2 feet, so you don't require to be rescued. You know, that's sort of like this, almost like a childish fantasy in many ways. You know, I remember as a girl, especially, I was growing up, and I was, you know, we watched these fairy tales about the prince coming to rescue us, and it's like, rescue us from what exactly, right? And once you're able to process this, whether with the help of a therapist or some other way, you know, to realize that actually you're your true rescuer, you're the only person who can really reach in there and create that wholeness within, then you no longer need that. And it completely changes the nature of the game of relationships, if I may call it that, because now it's no longer about sort of being in this nonstop workshop, which is what these relationships can become, very, very geared towards psychological growth. It's like you put so much psychology into these relationships, and you're just constantly watching each other through, you know, a magnifying glass, and oh, this person just does that, what did and it's this constant analysis, and it can become almost like a living in a workshop. It's exhausting. And instead, to be like, okay, you know, get to a place where you're like, okay, I'm all right, you know, I'm okay. I can stand on my 2 feet. And oh, here's another person who's relatively okay. Let's see what we can do together. Let's see if we can have some fun and maybe do things, right? Maybe start a family, maybe, I don't know, go travel and enjoy, or, you know, whatever, you know, whatever life brings, rather than having this sort of heavy, this very intensely analytical relationship with everybody, just constantly splits the hair of everyone's behavior and analyzes it, which, you know, it's very different. And it's usually to prove the other person that there's something wrong with them, right? Like, I'm right, you're wrong because you just did this and that. And it's just, and I've been in a relationship like that, and it's intense, and it's incredibly exhausting.
Sure. Yeah, like, yeah, definitely. I agree with you, and then required maturity from the both sides. So we jump maybe to next question, are we?
Mm-hmm.
And then the questions to you, and maybe I read that one first. Question from John. I would like to hear about strategies for self-advocacy for health recovery for people who have been caused chronic illness from narcissistic abuse. So that probably be you, because you have that process behind you, and then you can share with us.
Yeah, I would say I feel like I want to say it's completely behind me, but there's still sometimes little bits of symptoms that show up, but for the most part, I know what it is now, and I know what works to turn it off. So basically, this is a great question, and this is so common in people who have been through narcissistic relationships, that they end up having chronic symptoms of all sorts of illnesses. And it can be really, really scary. And there's so much to unpack here. This is a conversation in and of itself. But basically, what I would do to answer John's question specifically, what can we do? What kind of strategies for self-advocacy? And he stated it really beautifully, because it is ultimately about self-advocacy, is to create. That's like the most important thing, because the brain will create and exacerbate chronic symptoms when it thinks, it believes. I know it sounds kind of funny. It's kind of like you have 2 entities in one, but it is kind of like that. When it believes that you're not safe, when it believes that you're in danger, and the brain will do that to keep you at home, to keep you protected, to keep you taking care of yourself. So that you don't go out there in the world, get into other relationships, meet other people, so that it doesn't happen to you again. So what's helped me the most, and I've tried it all, it's been like almost 4 years, 3.5 years. And what's really moved the dial for me is to communicate to my brain and to my body that I am safe. It's really that simple. And to realize that I'm okay, that there's nothing wrong with me. I'm healthy, I'm not broken. My body is totally fine. These sensations that I'm feeling are just sensations. There's no need to panic. In fact, panic and anxiety and fear will make them stronger, will turn them chronic. But of course, I just want to also emphasize that before we take that route, we need to first make sure that we really are okay, we really are healthy, which means, going to the doctor, getting all the relevant tests done to make sure that really there isn't something. I've had multiple MRIs, I've had all the blood tests one can possibly imagine. I've seen almost 20 specialists, and they've all told me the same thing. They said, it's stress, you're fine. And then you kind of think like, what? But I'm not even stressed, right? And what I also discovered through this process is that I've been repressing a lot of my anger, a lot of my fears and emotions, putting a smile on my face when inside I wasn't really feeling happy, just to kind of convince myself that I was okay in that way, but that doesn't quite work. So what it took is to really acknowledge all these emotions, that were brewing inside of me, feel them. And I know you've had a great experience with that yourself, feel them fully, and then tell my brain that it's okay that I'm feeling these emotions, that it's okay, that they're normal, they're just part of life. This does not mean that I'm not safe. In fact, emotional repression creates an environment of unsafety, because as you know, when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, we oftentimes are forced to pretend that everything is okay when it isn't. We are not welcome to show our anger, because that causes rage and rejection in the narcissistic partner. So this process of healing from chronic illness is a lot about actually allowing yourself to feel your emotions, express your emotions spontaneously, without worrying too much how it's going to impact other people. Let other people deal with it themselves, right? So you allow yourself to be spontaneous in your expression of emotion, acknowledge it, and tell yourself, and you gotta really like kind of buy into this belief that you're safe, right? And that really helps. Self-talk is really crucial here, to tell yourself those things until the brain believes it. Of course, set healthy boundaries. That's also really important, is that so that you feel mentally and emotionally that you are able to protect yourself. So again, message of safety. And envision a positive future for yourself, because a lot of the times, and I've been there myself, people who suffer from chronic pain or other chronic illness, when they think about the future, they're like, oh my God, my life is gonna, like, this just sounds terrible. Like, I don't really want to live. I've had those feelings and emotions and thoughts myself, that, if I'm gonna go on feeling this terrible, I'd rather not go on living. And eventually, through this process of recovery, I came to a place where, first of all, I needed to read and listen to stories of healing from others to see that it's possible. Once I said it's possible, it's not just one person, but thousands of people have recovered. Some of them recovered very quickly. Then suddenly I feel like, okay, well, I can heal myself as well, which is exactly sort of the space that we want to open up inside of ourselves, the space of hope, the space of possibility, and then create a feeling of safety, and then give ourselves the right tools in order to propagate that message until it really sinks in and the symptoms go away. Because once the brain believes that you're safe, it will turn off the symptoms, and you can feel great, sometimes within hours. Sometimes it may take days, sometimes it may take weeks, because everybody has a different process. Everybody's got a different, will need to find a different key to their specific lock. But once you find it, it always leads to the same place, which is, I'm safe, I'm okay. I'm not broken, I'm not sick, I'm fine, and nothing bad is gonna happen to me because I can protect myself. And that the learning of boundaries and the knowledge that comes as a result of learning about these people and what narcissistic relationships do to us also play a very important role in believing in that safety.
Yes, great. I fully agree with that. What you said. It is very, very important to look after our own safety, because while is that boiling frog syndrome, we didn't realize how deep we are boiled, because that was extended in time, and then suddenly our nervous system was trying to adopt it and cover this, and right now it is in mess when we are trying to heal and recover. So that requires a lot of attention and self-love. In my case, it was like I was, and I'm still, and I hope I stay that way. I don't see any other way to stay in happy and healthy life, just to give as much love to myself as I can. Like, I wake up every morning, I touch my shoulder and I said, I love you. And that's the most important thing what I can do during the day. And that triggers that safety level, that loving level, that I don't require that from anyone else. I can give it to myself. And creating, by answering John's question, that safe environment. I moved out into friendly place while I'm surrounded by friendly people, and the nature, close to the beach, close to the forest, close to the walkways, and cycle tracks, and then I can spend time on my own and just go through that detoxification of dopamine. So I wasn't looking really for any excitement or anything what is keep me out of the balance, out of the harmony. And I stayed as much as I can on the flat line, while everything inside was buzzing, was giving me a signal, something is not right, something is not no good. And I agree, it is good to do health checks. It is good to do that because our body will sending them signals, something is not right. My strength, even in the gym with the weights, wasn't the same like previously. I wasn't able to lift the same weights. And that was body reaction into that stress level, while the body, it is healthy, but the cocktail of hormones and toxins created in our bodies are absolutely destroying. And the next level, and I heard about them cases, like if we don't look after ourselves, the system, our organism will develop a sickness, a cancer, and obviously don't want to be here anymore within that very unnatural level of state of unhealthy living. So yeah, definitely look after ourselves and put yourself on pedestal, not anyone else. Stop thinking about the other person. I know rumination is a really, really hard factor, but ruminate about myself, ruminate about things and what I can do, about my vision, fantasize what I can be, what I can achieve in life, and so on and so on. And I know some people have a lot of fear of the loneliness. That's not the case. You never be lonely if you go properly through that process. And about aging and all them factors, in my view, I prefer to live one day as a free person than all life as a codependent to someone who doesn't give a damn about me. So definitely it is worth it, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel if we go through that process properly. So I wish to everyone to go through this process with the self-loving and looking after self. And as you probably mentioned in so many of your movies, like supplementation, education, all of that, it is a base. It is absolutely necessary, absolutely must. So once you're on that channel, once you are looking at all of the movies, you're reading articles and educating yourself, that's another one. Like, because when you have a knowledge, then you have a power and stuff. Like, yeah, great question. And as you said, very common in that narcissistic abuse. Yeah.
I just wanted to add one more thing to what you had said about both the supplements and changing the environment. Not everyone will be able to have access to that. And I feel like these are more like support systems. But what is the most important in healing from chronic illness is changing the thought environment, changing the way you look at the world, look at yourself in it. That is the biggest game changer. I'd say it's probably 99%. The rest, if you can do it, if you have the means to move to a beautiful place, like Mariusz did, and take these supplements that can help your nervous system, which they definitely do help a lot, that's great. That's like this additional layer. But I think that the biggest game changer is how we talk to ourselves. And do we see the world in, like Einstein once asked, do you see the universe as friendly or unfriendly, right? And of course here it's difficult to parse it black and white like this. And what you could do is, after having been through this kind of an experience, is, yeah, there are bad people out there, there are unfriendly people out there, but I am now armed with the right knowledge to be able to protect myself. And so therefore I'm safe. And again, like coming back to that place of safety, I'm safe, I can take care of myself because now I know. I've been through it, now I know how to recognize it, and I'm fine. And just one last thing before we move on to another question, is that in the videos I have seen of other people who have healed themselves from chronic illness, some of them have been in toxic relationships while they healed themselves. which is kind of interesting, isn't it? Or they've been in toxic jobs. Of course, it's better when you leave and you're not, because it's a relief on the nervous system. But this again speaks to the fact that it's not a prerequisite, it's not necessary. Again, it's about what you tell yourself inside. So you can be in the environment with a narcissist, but you can feel inside that you are safe because you know what to do. You know how to protect yourself, and you know that you understand the rules of the games that they're playing, and you're not going to play into it. So there's a boundary. So that's what it boils down to. So again, you can take those extra steps. That's great. But if you can't do it now or ever, know that you can still heal.
Sure, I agree with that. Yeah. Sometimes the life circumstances don't let that happen. Like, yeah.
Exactly. And I know I mentioned when we were on another question that there was another thing we're going to talk about, individuation, and we skipped that, but I just want to bring it up real quick. Maybe we can take a minute to answer that question, just to sort of complete that previous topic that we've opened up. So I'll just read that. This is from a Polish person. Her name is Aneta, and I'm going to translate. She says, if I understood this correctly, to go through an individual process, a narcissist must lead the relationship to a breakdown. Why does a narcissist then continue to seek new people over and over again and get into this process? So I just want to first of all challenge the assumptions that are in this question, which is that a narcissist seeks to be individuated in a relationship, and therefore it drives the relationship to a separation, and then it repeats that same cycle. Yes, a narcissist will repeat the same cycle. It's all narcissistic mind knows. It's this process of idealization, devaluation, and discard. And it has its own reasons. Everybody will have their own reasons why they choose to go into the discard and leave their relationship. Some never do. We also have to remember that the discard doesn't necessarily mean the end of a relationship. This is something that can happen for 20, 30, 40 years inside of a marriage. And there may never be a complete separation, right? So just something to keep in mind. But there's an assumption here that this is what the narcissist is going through is individuation. In my view, and Mariusz may disagree with me, or whoever is watching this may disagree with me, and that's fine. But in my view, there is no individuation, healthy, wholesome individuation for a narcissist, because a narcissist is codependent at its core, and it has no ability to function on its own. It always needs someone there to reflect back on it. So it doesn't seek individuation to break apart. All it does is it looks for a way to relinquish its responsibility in a relationship onto the other person, so that it can be free of the need to be responsible and mature, because it just doesn't understand it. We're dealing here with very immature people. So the shedding of the responsibility by putting the blame on the other person eventually does lead to a breakup. But it doesn't lead to a breakup because the narcissist wants to individuate and stand on their own. It does it because it has a very toxic, it goes into very toxic behavioral modes to put the other person down so that they can feel better about themselves and not fulfill the responsibilities of an equal partner. So just want to make sure, just want to emphasize, we're not dealing with a healthy person. We're not dealing with a healthy individuation. So that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, I agree with you. What you just said. Individuation process. is an individuation for a mature person or for a normal process of growing within the healthy person. But in that sick, let's say, state of mind, while they are not looking for individuation on its own, they are just to try to fulfill their needs, whatever is in that spectrum of the disorder. This is something what they be seeking subconsciously. But then again, we tend to look at the other people as we view our world. So we cannot absolutely judge that by our projection on someone else. They have different agenda. So that may look like sort of individuation, but it is not. They need to fulfill their own needs first, as everything within the narcissistic person, and then go after whatever is the next step. And yes, in that context, I agree with that, what you said, yeah.
Yeah, and we have to remember that the main drives inside of a narcissist as they relate to relationship are to control. They want to control a relationship. So they have all these different ways to do this, and it will manifest as a form of dominance. And it's over time, it's so exhausting to the target or the victim that it will lead to a breakup. But again, it's not because of the narcissist feeling, okay, I'm on track to now becoming an individuated, healthy, integrated, wholesome individual. No. It's so that it's a tactic. But like you said something very important, and I think that it's spot on, and that ties in with projection. So when a person who is healthier looks at the narcissist and say, oh, they're doing this, they're wanting to individuate, they may be projecting their own desire to individuate onto the narcissist. But these are completely two different.
Yeah, and that can be misleading, and that can be misjudged, and yeah, that can be a trap actually, and often is.
Yeah, exactly. Excellent. So we have one more. Should we answer one more question? I know we were going to say 4, and I think we're on our 5th one. So these are such great questions everyone sent. Should we do the one from Emily?
Yes, sure, yeah.
All right. Do you want to read it, or you want me to read it?
If you have a voice, yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, okay, I'll read it. So that will be our last question for today. And Emily is asking, what are the signs that a person is not a narcissist? If the first feeling that we have when meeting a person is real, can we rely on our intuition? On the first moment, we see a person, their actions, their body language maybe, and so on. I'm still confused. As being empaths, we can easily make the bad in good, and this can affect our perception. Okay, there's quite a bit to unpack here. Emily, you are right about the intuition of a person who's been before through trauma, whether it's through a relationship or some other means. The intuition can get a little bit cloudy, right? It can get cloudy, the body is confused, the nervous system is prone to spiking, it's prone to intense bouts of fear, it's prone to misperceiving, right? My view about this is always better safe than sorry. If you're getting triggered, and it could be it could be that you're with somebody who's safe, but you're still getting triggered, it's probably safer to just take a step back, right? And just take time with this person. And that could be a very good indicator and good filter to see whether you're dealing with a manipulator or whether you're dealing with someone who's good and healthy. And so if you're taking a step back and you're saying, listen, I'm not feeling so good, I'm just gonna, take some time, maybe I'll see you in a week or 2 or 3, and you put some time so you can process things, then a narcissist is not gonna like that because you just set a boundary. A person who's not a narcissist is going to have no problem with it. In fact, they may even support you and say, okay, no problem, take as much time as you need. And there is this sense of comfort and trust that organically develops between these two people. So while you may be a little bit confused, you know, and misperceiving certain things, still it is better, I think, to trust that and go into safety rather than to be like, oh, maybe I am wrong, maybe this person is fine, I'm just projecting my fear onto them. You know, this is like when we're getting into deep, intimate relationships with people where we open ourselves up and we let people in. This can be threatening sometimes. You know, it's a serious thing, letting somebody inside yourself. And so to be more on the protective side, I think is a healthy thing. So how do you recognize somebody who is not a narcissist in a nutshell? There's going to be a respect of boundaries. They're both distance-wise, physically. So the person is not going to try to, you know, break into your space and touch you and kiss you right away, or, you know, shame you in a way, in some way when you're not into that. And there's going to be also a temporal boundary, so boundary in time where they're not going to shame you for wanting to put some time in between. So there will be this healthy sense of distance, which will create a sense of comfort and warmth despite the triggers and spikes. And if there are triggers and spikes, they're going to be much more dialed down than they would be when you're meeting a narcissist. So the body isn't going to react as strongly. It may still react because, again, you've been triggered in the past, you've been traumatized, but maybe not as much. There will be some breathing room, breathing space between you and that person. So that's how I would answer that in a nutshell.
Yes, perfect. For me, it'd be definitely, I agree with what Eva said, and it'd be a factor of that. Let's say we have graph of time and action. The time will be extended. So just give yourself time and be patient. Be patient into all process, like, because one day, don't forget, some people are very manipulative and they are trained into that for years. And some of them all day life, they don't do anything else just to manipulate. So they are very good in that. Just give it the time, like, you know, and at some stage, if the person is not honest and it have narcissistic traits or disorders, it will show up at some stage. Your body will give you a sign something is not right. All of them, what Eva mentioned, all of them will be shown. But if everything is okay, slowly build that trust. And again, look inside yourself, not with the panic, just be in harmony within yourself, and yourself will tell you, are you on the right track or not? So yeah, definitely all of them.
Yeah, it boils down to self-trust, right? And to get back into that self-trust, that's a process in and of itself. So I would spend the time when you're not talking to this person on working on yourself, healing yourself, whether you work with a therapist or whether you go into nature or whatever it is that you may need, fulfill your needs so that you don't feel vulnerable to needing all your needs to be fulfilled by that other person, because that other person is going to take advantage of that, especially if they're narcissistic. So like you said, learn to slow things down, because in narcissistic relationships, everything happens at breakneck speed. It's intense. So sort of dial that down, take a step back, and be with yourself, be with your emotions. Let those emotions come up, let those fears come up, process these traumas through your nervous system, and give yourself the care and the space that you need while you're away from that person, so that when you're with that person, you're going to have a much better working barometer of who this person is.
Right, I think we come to the last question for today, Q&A session. There is definitely more of them. If we want to spend more time and effort on them, it could be probably endless and very passionate topics and everything. And thanks for all of them, and maybe put the new ones in the comments. And I hope Eva will find the time in the future to answer them again, and maybe we can do Q&A session again sometime.
Exactly. We can do it together. We can do it on our own. These are great questions. Thank you guys so much for asking them. We hope this was helpful. Let us know what was the most helpful thing for you from this session in the link below. And next, we're gonna, I guess, do it again in Polish.
Okay. So thanks, everyone. Thanks, Eva, for that. And see you again at some stage. Thanks very much.
Peace and blessings.